The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
Our reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee. But he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." My dear friends, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated.
Muli po magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat at nawa kayo ay ligtas sa inyong mga bahay. My dear friends, if you remember the transfiguration event of the Lord, so when he went up on a mountain, the mount, and then there he was transfigured, it was a very beautiful event na tumatak doon sa mga apostles and disciples na kasama niya, and that they even insinuated na, "Let's stay here longer. Let's build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and then one for Elijah." So when you build something, a tolda, there is an intention to stay longer. But the Lord did not agree with them. He told them, "This is not where we are going to stay, because this is not the end of our mission. We should go down and we should face and carry on the mission that was entrusted to me by the Father." In the Gospel that we read today, that mission is fast unfolding. That mission is fast being in front with clarity before the Lord. And this is now the moment of truth. This is already the moment of reckoning for Jesus. That unavoidable reality of his salvific mission. At ano yon? Nakakambal ng kanyang pagpunta sa mundo, pakikipamuhay sa atin. Ang kakambal nun ay yung suffering and death that will complete. Of course, there will be the resurrection. And that will complete the mission that was given to him by the Father. And it's not time to make miracles anymore. Tapos na yun. Naipakita na niya, naipamalas na niya yung kanyang kakayahan before the people. And yet, people were still incredulous, unbelieving. But tapos na yung paggawa ng miracle in that aspect. It's not also a time anymore for preaching to large crowd. Tapos na rin po yun. This is time to gather strength. This is it. The mission is fast unfolding. Tapos na yung negotiation. Tapos na yung invitation. Tapos na rin yung pakikipag-usap. Tapos na yung pakiusapan. Now this is the time for confrontation. Face to face. Alam nyo, madalas takot tayo sa confrontation. Madalas, many of us, lalong-lalo na kapag napakalakas ng ating katunggali, ng nasa kabilang linya, ng nasa kabilang partido, no? We often would just say, remain silent, not say anything about a matter that must be discussed, na dapat pag-usapan. But in the gospel that we read today, the Lord is telling us that when the inevitable part of this mission, no, arrives, He is not going to cower from it. He will soldier on. Kaya nga naman siya, sigurado siya doon sa kanyang gagawin. Pero yung mga kasama niya ay mukhang pinanghihinaan pa ng loob. And it was something that must be depressing to the Lord kasi habang sila ay papunta doon sa Jerusalem, they were arguing about something. And the Lord asked them, what were you arguing about? Tameme, walang maisagot. Because what they were busy talking about while the Lord was contemplating about how to fulfill the mission, the difficulty that comes along with it, the pain, the suffering that comes along with the fulfillment of the mission. And yet, yung mga kasama niya were talking about petty things. Who among them will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Kaya hindi nakasagot kasi nakakahiya. No? Parang ang dami-dami ng mga nagsasuffer because of COVID, dami-dami ng mga namamatay because of COVID, madami-dami ng nagugutom because of the pandemya, and yet it seems that the efforts are not focused on how to address this particular disease. Yes, there are efforts, but if you're going to ask whether they are sufficient, then mapapaisip po talaga tayo, mga kapatid. The Lord, in the gospel, I am very sure, were dismayed at the apostles. Eto ako, aharapin ko na itong misyon na itinalaga sa akin ng aking Ama. And yet you're busy with something that is not within that mission. Petty. Kaya nga po, kung titingnan natin ano ang lesson nitong ating binasang ebanghelyo, there are times sa buhay natin wherein it's time to set aside petty matters. And the disciples are doing just that. Ora de peligro na, sabi nga natin, and yet yung pa rin yung mga pinag-uusapan natin, yung pa rin yung mga concerns natin. And it is unnerving. It is really depressing when we see that and when we hear that. Time to set aside petty matters and to face and to address what matters to the Filipino people. Second, this is a teaching about humility. No? Teaching about humility. Ang hirap maunawaan na yung isang Panginoon, na isang kanilang leader that making miracles left and right, preaching, and then people were in a way, amazed at his preaching with authority, and then at some point, eto siya preaching about his death. Ang hirap i-reconcile yun sa pananaw ng kanyang mga apostoles, sapagkat if you going to do this, are we also part of it? That is something that was very difficult for them to accept. That's why the Lord is teaching also how to fully understand the mission of suffering and death, the mission of salvation. It has to come with an eye of humility. Pangatlo, ang ganda po ng ginawa ng Panginoon sapagkat people were talking about, discussing, arguing, debating who should be first. And yet what he did is simply to call a child, powerless, in the peripheries, voiceless, and he just called the child and told everyone, whoever welcomes this powerless, this voiceless child in their midst, in my name, then they welcome me. Teaching on welcoming those who are in the fringes. So what matters, my dear friends? What are not petty things? Not petty things are when we attend to the least, to the last, and then to the lost. Ang lungkot, kapag ganun pa rin yung mga nababalitaan natin, nababasa natin sa dyaryo, napapakinggan natin sa mga balita, when we can use all the energy to help those, the least, the last, and the lost. Why? Because this is at the core of Jesus' salvific mission.